Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping straight into one of the most unbelievable historical overlaps you'll ever come across. We're looking at a story that connects two completely different worlds, intersecting at a single, incredibly unlikely point on the map. It's this wild tale of a wandering merchant from Jerusalem and the seafaring voyagers of the Philippine archipelago. The trade winds of the Indian Ocean hold a ton of secrets, but this accidental bridge? It's arguably the absolute most extraordinary. So think about this. How exactly does a Filipino boat permanently alter an African island centuries before global trade was even a concept? Well, to figure out this geographic paradox, we have to explore a story of just immense, sheer luck and a devastating, completely accidental voyage across the unforgiving Indian Ocean. It's one of those stories that will really force you to rethink everything you know about early global connections.
All right, let's get into it. Section 1, the ghost ship's journey. Our epic tale actually kicks off in the early centuries of maritime expansion with a massive plank-built wooden vessel from the Visayan Islands known as a balangay. Commanded by a highly seasoned navigator named Raja Salaman, this really mighty ship gets caught in an unprecedented violent typhoon. The storm is just so fierce that it literally strips the ship of its sails entirely, leaving the crew totally at the mercy of the sea.
Now, utterly helpless without those sails, the desperate crew gets pulled right into the unrelenting grip of the South Equatorial Current. For months, they drift westward across thousands of miles of open ocean. They're surviving purely on rainwater and raw fish. And right as their provisions completely fail them, the jagged peaks of a massive, unknown landmass finally break the horizon. They'd actually washed up on the eastern shores of Madagascar. Realizing they were trapped by these ferocious countercurrents with absolutely no way to ever sail back home, they basically looked around and decided, well, I guess we live here now. They make the incredibly practical choice to just settle, and by sheer chance, they permanently alter the island's culture. They introduce their outrigger boat technology, they integrate their language, and they even share staple crops, things like taro and yams. It's a complete cultural transplant happening entirely by accident. Okay, to understand the next piece of this puzzle, we have to fast forward centuries later to the absolute height of the Spice Road. Enter a Jewish merchant and cartographer named Avraham of Toledo. He ends up stranded in the bustling ports of Madagascar while obsessively searching for these legendary lands of gold and spices mentioned in ancient texts, a place that was often whispered to be the biblical land of Ophir. Which brings us to Section 2, a clue in Madagascar. While he's trading linen in this coastal Malagasy village, Avraham starts noticing some cultural breadcrumbs that simply don't belong there. His cartographer's brain immediately spots a massive anomaly. Right alongside the expected African linguistic and maritime traits, he sees local fishermen using these highly specific sail knotting techniques. Not only that, they're speaking words that completely contradict their geography. It was a mystery that absolutely demanded an explanation. Driven by sheer curiosity, Avraham sits down with a local elder who shares this incredibly powerful piece of lore. He talks about the first people coming from the rising sun, coming from an endless maze of islands where the seas are warm and gold flows like water. And to back up this incredible story, the elder actually hands him a sacred heirloom, a weathered, petrified piece of balangay wood. This wood was etched with Baybayin, a beautiful, ancient, flowing script. But to an expert like Avraham, this wasn't just some old writing, it was actually a secret star map of the ancestors. It was literal, physical proof linking this African island to a distant, unknown civilization way off to the east. Let's look at Section 3, deciphering the ancient map. So Avraham puts his linguistic and astronomical skills to the ultimate test. He spends weeks obsessing over these faded carvings, and by combining the ancient etched star coordinates with his own trusty astrolabe, he has a huge breakthrough. He realizes he can plot a reverse course. By tracking the countercurrents and utilizing the shifting monsoon season, he could literally retrace the exact steps of those ancient mariners. But it really begs the question, could a carved piece of petrified wood actually lead someone back to the legendary lands of gold? Facing the truly terrifying prospect of sailing directly east into the complete unknown, Avraham had to make a choice. He essentially had to place his absolute trust in a map carved by ghosts to bridge the centuries. Moving on to Section 4, retracing the Somme. Avram completely bypasses the safe, standard trade stops of India and Malacca. He just ignores them entirely. Instead, he charters a sturdy Arabian doe hires a fiercely brave crew, and sails straight into the void. Guided solely by that Filipino star map, they'd battle maddening equatorial doldrums where the wind just dies, and they endure these unpredictable, sudden, violent storms all across the open Indian Ocean. 42. On the 42nd day of this incredibly treacherous voyage, after staring at nothing but endless water, the horizon finally breaks. Out of this sapphire sea rise these vast emerald mountains. The star map was dead on accurate. Avraham's ship glides into a pristine bay in what we now know as Luzon in the Philippines. And right away, he's greeted by locals paddling these swift outrigger boats that perfectly mirrored the exact designs he'd seen thousands of miles away in Africa. Stepping onto the shore, he's met by tribal chieftains decked out in heavy gold collars and intricate tattoos. He had actually found the source. And finally, Section 5, the circle complete. The absolute definitive proof hits when Avraham pulls that petrified piece of wood from his robe. He's standing there in the Philippines, the original home of those lost sailors, and compares it to the writing of the local island scribes right there in Luzon. The ancient script from Madagascar and the living Baybayin tradition matched perfectly. So think about that. A chance shipwreck accidentally colonizes an island in Africa. And centuries later, a single wanderer's curiosity brings that story all the way back to the Philippines. The loop was officially closed. It's just a brilliant reminder that human curiosity and shared knowledge can literally bridge vast oceans and centuries of time. Which leads us to a really big final thought to wrap up this explainer. If a single, lost ship could permanently link two completely distant worlds like that, what other secret connections are just hiding in plain sight within ancient history? It leaves us to deeply reconsider just how interconnected the ancient world truly was, long before modern globalization ever existed. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredible journey. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next one.